I typically work from my iPad, but with shortcuts coming to macOS Monterey, I was really curious to see how my daily workflow would transfer to a Mac. Now, I haven't used a Mac as my normal daily computer in years. The iPad has been my go-to. So I loaded up macOS Monterey on my Mac Mini, which acts as a file server and a few other things, and I sat down and just used that computer for a whole day. Now, a quick spoiler, I'm not switching to the Mac. The iPad is still my main computer, the computer I go to. But I do use a Mac for a lot of utility stuff, and I also use an iPhone and Apple Watch. These are all computers, and they all serve their purpose in my workflow. This video is sponsored by Clean My Mac X, and my thanks to them for sponsoring it. So let's start off talking about what I did for the day. It was a very normal admin writing day. I didn't do any video editing. I did a little bit of photo editing for creative workflow, but no video editing, nothing like that. I started the day off by uploading my iPadOS 15 walkthrough video, and I'm not entirely sure how these videos will be released, so it may already be out or it may be coming out soon. We'll see. But I uploaded that video. Now, uploading videos to YouTube has always worked better on a Mac for me. You absolutely can do it from the iPad through the YouTube app. I've also had success doing it through Safari, but this is a 50 gig video file. Yes, you heard me right. 50 gigs. So I didn't really want to take any chances with it. I didn't really want to mess with it. I started the upload and just let it go throughout the day. I don't have the fastest upload speed here, so it did take quite a few hours. Once I got that uploaded, I started getting caught up on email. I had been away from email because I had been working on that iPadOS 15 walkthrough video. I spent a week just solely focused on filming and editing that video. So I hadn't really checked my email in a while, which is not a good thing, especially when you run a business. So took a few hours and caught up on my email. I use the Mail app on the iPhone and the iPad, just the built-in Mail app. So I use the same thing on my Mac. Now, I also use what's called SaneBox. It's a subscription service, so you can kind of do email filtering and things like that. It's really nice for being able to filter out a lot of that unwanted junk. I have a public email address, and people like to sign that email address up for things that I don't want. So I can drag that into what's called the Sane black hole. It marks it as read, and I never have to see it. So that's really nice. I also use the Sane later feature. So like if it determines an email is probably not important, it can go in the Sane later feature, and I check that about once a day. Then there is a Sane news folder, and that's where kind of like newsletters and stuff go. So between the black hole later and news folder, it kind of does a great job at filtering out the emails I don't really need to deal with right away, and so my inbox is just left with the really important stuff. Mail on the Mac is a lot more robust than Mail on the iPad and the iPhone. For one key feature that I really want to see come to the iPhone and the iPad, that's smart folders. Smart folders basically allow you to do your own filtering right into specific folders. It's really nice. I'm not entirely sure why these still aren't on the iPad and the iPhone, but that is a really nice feature I would love to see come. There's also Mail plugins, which is really cool. That's a big thing in macOS Monterey, and I didn't install any because they don't come over to the iPad and the iPhone, and that's typically where I handle my email, but it's all interesting features nonetheless. When it came time for writing, I used Drafts. Drafts is a great text editor. I use it on my iPad and iPhone for just jotting down things to writing out full scripts. I wrote my, I believe it was over 8,000 word script for my iPadOS walkthrough video. I wrote that entirely in Drafts. Drafts does a great job at balancing features between the iPad and iPhone and the Mac. The UI is slightly different, so that did throw me for a loop. It took me a little while to figure out how to open a second window in a draft, like a whole separate draft window. And the iPad, that's really easy, but it did take me a minute to remember how to do that on the Mac. So that was a fun little like, okay, I don't feel so smart right now moment. But the nice thing about Drafts is a vast majority of the actions that I use on my iPad carry over on the Mac. So all the automations that I have in the Drafts app, I could just take care of and use right there. Then the last thing I did, and this is a GTD things for those that have read the book Getting Things Done, is I did a weekly review. Like I mentioned, I had spent a whole week just focused on filming and editing my iPadOS 15 walkthrough, my task manager, calendar, drafts, they were all a mess. So I just sat down, and I think it took me honestly like an hour, which is a long time for me. I don't normally have to spend that long to do a review, but I went through all the projects, all the statuses of all the videos I'm working on, any sponsorships, side projects, things upcoming, calendar appointments. This is the week that I'm filming this, is we had an Apple event, so there was stuff I needed to do to prep for that. There was a lot of things. So I sat down and I used the Things app, Fantastical, and Drafts. And what was nice is I was able to have all three of those open side by side. But that was also kind of a downside of using a Mac, and I'll talk more about that in a bit. This video is sponsored by Clean My Mac X. macOS is a pretty robust operating system, but even macOS can use a helping hand. Enter Clean My Mac X. This helps handle any issues your Mac may come across. One of the most popular features in Clean My Mac X is Smart Scan. This goes through and optimizes your Mac so it's always running at peak performance. It will also check for any malware while it's scanning. If your Mac is feeling sluggish after you turn it on, check out the optimization feature. This shows all your apps that launch at login. I found a couple that I didn't even know were on my Mac and were able to easily disable them. I also use Clean My Mac X to clean up installed applications I wasn't using anymore. Did you know dragging and dropping an app to the trash doesn't get rid of all the files? With this feature, you're able to clean out all the hidden files that aren't contained in the .app file. You can also use Clean My Mac X to figure out where all your storage is going. This is really handy if you have limited space. I'll put a link to it in the description below so you can check it out. My thanks to Clean My Mac X for sponsoring this video. Okay, so a few things that I really liked about the Mac. The first is system-wide keyboard shortcuts. I was able to trigger a new task in Things when I didn't have Things open, and that's just a really nice feature. I really want the iPad to get that, even if it was something through shortcuts, like give me the ability to set a global keyboard shortcut to trigger a Siri shortcut, a shortcut, if you will, which would be really nice. The second one is probably going to be obvious for a lot of people that have used the iPad at a desk setup, but external monitor support. It doesn't just mirror, well, I'm using a Mac Mini, so obviously there's nothing to mirror, but you know, external monitor support is really nice. Hint, hint, Apple. The menu bar. The menu bar is something we're kind of getting in iPadOS 15. When you hold down the command button on the iPad, you'll now see something that looks like the menu bar, but with the menu bar being present all the time in the Mac, that was just nice, especially for me, since I don't use the Mac a whole lot. I forgot what a lot of shortcuts are, so I couldn't remember keyboard shortcuts for really specific things. So I just, click in the menu bar, find them, or you can do the help and search for them. Plus, you have all those menu bar applications that are just like nice, quick, small utilities. It's a nice place for them to live. I mentioned at the beginning of this video, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this was Shortcuts is coming to macOS Monterey, and it's really nice to be able to have all your automations there now across all the Apple platforms. iPhone, iPad, Mac, even the Apple Watch. It's nice that all of these are there and you can trigger them all. Shortcuts does a really good job of making sure the actions that are built into Shortcuts work on all these platforms or most of these platforms. Now, there's a few things like the iPhone and iPad can do that the Mac can't do. And there's some stuff the Mac could do that the iPhone and iPad can't do. The one that I noticed that I was kind of jealous of as an iPad user was window management action. That is something I definitely want on the iPad. But yeah, Shortcuts was just handy. I didn't have to reach over and grab my iPhone, or I didn't have to grab my iPad to trigger something. When I'm working throughout the day, I fire off Shortcuts to get a lot of little tasks done automatically in the background. I'm a big believer in automating work that's repeating work so you don't have to constantly keep doing it over and over and over. Some people may not believe this, but I really haven't tried it until now because I don't use the Mac. But I finally got around to trying Sidecar. Because of my desk setup, I have my monitor, and then I have a laptop stand right next to the monitor where my iPad sits. So I was like, you know what? Let's just enable it and try it out. And it was cool. I threw my task manager over there. I threw the music app over there. Stuff that I didn't need in my face a lot all the time. I just threw it over there. It was off to the side, out of the way. Just, it was a second monitor. Pretty cool feature the way it worked. Okay, so a few things I didn't care for when using the Mac. The biggest one was window management. I have ADHD. I've talked about this in the past. One of the biggest reasons why I like working from the iPad, and the biggest reason why I started working from the iPad years ago, was because you were limited to how much stuff you can have on the screen at one time. It's typically, one big full-size app or two apps in split view, and maybe a third in slide over if you really need it. I have ADHD, and when I was on the Mac and I had a bunch of different windows open, my attention was constantly being pulled all over the place. I know this isn't something that's going to affect everyone, but it affected me. I've heard from a lot of you that you also have ADD or ADHD, and that's why you like the iPad as well. So I just want to say, if that is the case, it's hard to use the Mac when you have a bunch of windows open. I was finding I was constantly hiding other applications just so I could only have one app up, and I wasn't even having the app full screen or something like that, because then it would just be ridiculously huge. But yeah, I was basically using the Mac like an iPad, where I'd only have one or two, maybe three at the most applications up at any given time, just because it was hard for me to focus when I had any more. So this next one doesn't really affect me because I'm using a Mac Mini, but it is a point I wanted to bring up. There's no cellular options currently on their laptops. Now, I do kind of expect this to change at some point in the future, but I do want to bring it up. This last weekend, my first niece was born, and it was a very, very exciting time. But due to what's happening in the world right now, we weren't able to go in the hospital. So what we did is my parents have a little travel trailer. They brought it to the hospital. We parked in the parking lot away from the hospital, and we sat in there waiting for the baby to be born. And because I have cellular on my iPad, I was able to do my whole job, no problem. Didn't need to worry about hotspots or bad Wi-Fi or hospital Wi-Fi that I was getting kicked off or anything like that. I was just able to do my job and didn't have to think about it. It was a really nice feature. And just that weekend alone, because I had so much going on with that iPad OS 15 walkthrough video, it was worth the cost, the extra cost to get the cellular model of the iPad. Next, no Apple Pencil support. I use the Apple Pencil for handwriting notes, journaling, things like that. Obviously, I have a Mac Mini. I don't know how exactly that would work. Maybe Apple Pencil on a trackpad or something. I don't know, but I want to bring it up. The Apple Pencil is a really nice accessory that I really love using. Let's finish up by talking about what I'm actually using my Mac Mini for. File server. Like I talked about when I initially got it, I'm backing up video projects here, extra files, things like that. I have some external drives plugged into it. The next is an automation server. There's a couple of things coming to the Mac because Shortcuts lives there now. And I can't talk about them just yet because they haven't been announced. So I'm sorry, I'm gonna be that guy that kind of teases the thing, but I promise I will make videos about them when they are out. But there are a few things that are coming to the Mac that are gonna be able to take a standalone Mac Mini or an always-on Mac to just a whole nother level. You're going to be able to do so much with it if you're into automation. You use services like Zapier or IFTTT or whatever. There's going to be a lot you're going to be able to do with these in the future, and I'm super excited about it. And then backups. Backups are something I've complained about a lot on the iPad. I don't like the way the iPad handles backups. I really think the iPad does need Time Machine. So right now I'm having to manually back up files. I actually built a shortcut, but it doesn't work super well right now. I think there's just a bug. So I'm manually backing up files and stuff to this Mac Mini, and then those are getting backed up to an external drive and stuff like that. I really need the backup system to get a little more robust on the iPad, but on the Mac, it's solid. Time Machine's great. Then you can use a service like Backblaze or something like that. So that's it for this video. That's how I used a Mac for a day. If you're a big iPad user but still use a Mac, let me know what you use it for in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching, and my thanks to Clean My Mac X for sponsoring this video. Have a great day.